Good day, Nigerians. Good evening, Nigerians, wherever you are, and lovers of Nigeria. I remember one thing they used to say: follow the money. Follow the money, and you know what happened. This night, we come with, I think tonight is one of the days I consider we're going to have the best evening, because it's all about building a model. The model on how Nigeria was betrayed and murdered on the 25th of February, 2022. The money, the people, the Inec, the Irev, the beavers, how all of a sudden everything crashed. It didn't just happen. It was not a glitch. It was premeditated. It was a strategy, well executed. People have collected their checks and they have moved on, and we are the people suffering it. I saw in the news yesterday a payment receipt from a bank in Europe. I looked at it somehow or the other. I felt it wasn't, I shouldn't give it attention. But then from all the sources where we access news, it starts gaining weight that this allegation may not be far from truth. Now, this night, we're going to be discussing it from the point of view of allegation, and then we're going to ask ourselves question: if this allegation are truth, and given what happened, is it not plausible that indeed this allegation may be true, and this indeed was what happened, and that's how we landed ourselves where we are, where we found ourselves where we are today, because we didn't land ourselves. Somebody pushed us off the cliff, and we found ourselves where we are today. There is allegation making the rounds that our 2023 presidential election was compromised for a fee of 93 point what again? Can you show me again? Show me that slip. For 94.53 million euros was how much they bidded the 2023 presidential election in Nigeria, and that was what was paid for that particular election to do what? Crash. And that particular deal was executed as far back as 3rd of February 2023 by 9:54 a.m. And it was credited to it was paid to the credit. Give me the other slip, the real slip. This was just an advice saying a payment is coming. Yes. It was to Naim M. Yakubu, who happens to be the son of our Inec chairman. That's the allegation. The son of the Inec chairman. 94,530,000 euro paid into this account that is in Paris. Show me the first slide, slide again, please. That previous one, HSBC Bank. You can see is HSBC Continental, 38th Avenue, Quebec, Paris, France. That was it. Now, I don't want to go further into the problem, because the young boy who had nothing, who doesn't have a job, he's living a life of a big boy all over Europe, riding on a yacht, renting yacht. There is an issue that he's probably having problem with. That's not my business. But that money was meant to settle the directors, the likes of, Festus Okoye, all those people who were in Chatham House telling us about the Electoral Act, about the Constitution, you remember INEC chairman said, look, we have gone beyond failing. There is no way this system will fail, but money can make anything fail. Now, if indeed 530,000 euros were dumped in this account by February 3rd. That is 22 days to the election. You can imagine why the man wouldn't care. You can imagine why he wouldn't bother. You can imagine why all the bad name you call him is immaterial, because he's sitting on hard currency. But another aspect to it is this: who made the payment? Show me that second slide. And this is where it becomes really, when I saw the person who credited the account, the sender, Chogri Group, this company, Chogri Group, rang bell, because in September this year, I saw a news about the Chogri Group. And I even posted it in one of my social media handles. I posted it in one of my handles. I think I posted it on Twitter. There is this Chogri Group is a company that is, how do I describe them? When you talk about international money laundering, a system that helps politicians move money around, all those people who want to destroy countries, this is a body that knows how to do it. And we can trace Chogri Group back to the Abacha days. But before then, let me show you the headline of Sahara Reporters on September this year. This was on September 24th. It says, how Nigerian government awarded Lagos Calabar Coastal Highway to Tinubu's Lebanese ally, accused of terrorism, drug dealing in US, and linked to Abacha stolen funds. So, just like we talked about the Chicago State University, that university is known for sharp practices, and people who want that kind of favor will always go to such kind of place. You see, this apple did not fall far from the tree, that the possibility of any politician who want to do fast runs with Chogri at that level of transaction, that Chogri Group will be an agency to help them is not far-fetched. How? Let's go back to the days of Abacha. Abacha was in government from 1993 to 1998. And let's see how Chogri Group was involved in defrauding and impoverishing Nigeria. Can you show me that slide? The one that's from Premium Time, please. That showed something, the relationship of Abacha and this Chogri Group, so that we can build the case up and return it. It says, the Abacha plunder of Nigeria and those who helped. Forget about number one, Gabriel Katri. Let's just come down to number two, Gilbert Chogri. Mr. Chogri is a Nigerian-born businessman of Lebanese descent. He is the founder of the Chogri Group, whose multi-billion-dollar asset spans construction, manufacturing, real estate, and hotels. He has accrued an infamous track record for decades. Infamous, not famous. Infamous track record for decades. Show me the next slide about him where they finished. Okay, it says here, Mr. Chogri was convicted in 2000 of money laundering and aiding a criminal organization. In the 1990s, he set up account with SG Rock Bank in Geneva for the Abacha family, enabling them to benefit from illegal transfer of $120 million from the Central Bank of Nigeria and secured immunity from prosecution. Court documents showed. Listen, he secured immunity from prosecution. We take it back again to the judiciary much later. He later paid 600,000 in fines to the court in Geneva, Switzerland, and refunded 66 million to the Nigerian government. Now, it was a court in Geneva that found him guilty, but he secured immunity from our own country and our own courts. Our own judiciary granted him immunity. Just like I said about the former governor of Delta State, our judicial system cleared him of every sin, of every offense. But he was found guilty for offenses he committed in Nigeria. He was found guilty in London for offenses he committed in Nigeria, which Nigerian judiciary cleared him. And he was imprisoned in London. Mr. Chogri was granted immunity in Nigeria, but Geneva court found him guilty and made him refund us $66 million. Come on, this judiciary, come on. Okay, just aside, the number 3 person that helped Abacha, just before we forget, his name is Abubakar Bagudu. Now, don't think he's another one. It's the same one, you know, the former senator and former governor of Zamfara State. Is it Zamfara State? What's the most? Give me the next slide. Where the next slide, please. Good. It says Mr. Bagudu is involved with all the offshore front companies and bank accounts from the British Virgin Islands to Ireland, to Switzerland, to Germany, to Singapore, to England, to Paris, to Jersey, used to steal and launder billions of dollars belonging to Nigeria under Abacha. He acted as a director and in some cases as a signatory of account of prime beneficiary, document revealed. Show me the last slide. Show me the last slide. He was behind the latest recovery in the UK alongside Mohamed Abacha. Mr. Bagudu, who was a former senator, has been the governor of Nigerian Northwest State since 2015. Kebbi State, please, Kebbi State. Since 2015. And he is an ally of former President Mohamed Buhari. I don't want to talk more. Let your own mind go. But I do remember that Buhari once stoutly said that Abacha did not steal. And even as the recovery, it was his government that was recovering it. For one day, he never condemned Abacha. And Bagudu was the henchman of Abacha. And Bagudu was a governor in the days of Buhari. He was governor from the day Buhari started until the day Buhari left government. And later became the APC chairman. It was him that conducted the primaries that handed over to the man the man from what's the state, Nasarawa State, that later handed over to this Gandola. You know, you see the APC, our APC. And so let's go back to the Chogri now. So this same Chogri we are hearing about, that was a part of the Abacha's ring of money laundering. And of course, you people know how much Abacha did to our country. News had it from Sahara reporters in September this year that they gave him contract to do what? Can you show me? Can you show me that particular contract they gave him? They've given him the contract of Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway. Lagos-Calabar, meaning, you know, the road that is going to just go, you know, from Lagos to Calabar, the coastal highway, just like what they call the East-West Road, the one that was supposed to run from, you know, linking all the coastal cities. They gave him this contract in September. The information came out, according to Sahara reporters, in September. Now, if you backtrack it, you now see This is the model. I've gotten the pieces together now. Now listen, Mahmoud, we sought you out with 94 million euros. You frustrate Nigeria. And because they don't want to pay the money directly to him, they paid it into his son's account. Okay, fine. But because the politicians that will do the job cannot use his name, they use a big company that can move that kind of money to do it. A company paying into a personal account. This amount of money. What business did that person do? We don't know. But all of us here know that a lot of politicians travel so much to France, more than UK, that is our colony, our former colonial master. Many trips were to France. You know, a whole lot of runs were happening in France. I don't need to speak more on that because we all know. Now, for helping the runs of moving the money, they have compensated Chogri Group with this contract. That is the way they will pay him. Are you getting the network? How everything is connected. That is how everything is connected. So Mahmoud is sorted out, Chogri Group is sorted out, and of course, the presidency is also sorted out. And everybody is happy, except those who have the apple that it was taken away from. And who are those? The common Nigerians. Because the judiciary too is sorted out. Remember, just between May 29 and now, judiciary was given extra 35 billion naira. Extra 35 billion. So everybody's sorted out, isn't it? Judiciary sorted out. Politicians are happy. They own the government. The guy who helped them move the money sorted out. And the person who messed our election up sorted out. Nigerians. I don't know if this my model looks plausible. But indeed, if that pay slip is the truth, because I say it's an allegation, this is how we are fried. But I think we are still not done. I'm going to have my colleague say something. We are still not done with the judiciary because the senior advocate, Olisa Bakoba himself, former president of the Nigerian Bar Association, gave his own account of that endemic corruption, his own personal experience with the judiciary, especially with the Supreme Court. But then let me let Ifeoma say something.
Yeah, Doc, thank you very much. Hello, viewers. You are welcome to this live session. Honestly, you can imagine a situation where we are living in a country where our electoral body has been hijacked, despite being independent. Then our judiciary too has equally been hijacked, going by the testimony, the revelation that was made by a fellow judge. You know, a judge, that's somebody amongst them, not an outsider. This is somebody that understands the in and out and everything that has been happening. So you can imagine a situation whereby these two vital institutions have been hijacked by our politicians. So if this revelation that is being exposed today happens to be real, because going by the images we are already displaying, you can see that this bank is a real bank and it's not like anyhow bank. These are banks that have, this is one of the banks that have great reputation. So this transaction must have happened. And if this transaction actually happened, just for them to frustrate Nigerians who took their time to go and register for their PVCs, they stood under the sun, under the rain to collect their PVCs, they still took the risk to go and vote. And at the end of the day, they told us it doesn't matter the way Inec wants results to be collated, whether it's electronically or not. Inec has that power to decide. And whenever he decides, even if it's at the dying minute, it doesn't matter. That is what the judiciary has told us. And like Dr. Tell tried to analyze this yesterday, he said the judiciary has ended up arming talks for the forthcoming elections, because for the future elections we'll be having, anything can happen. You can grab it, you can snatch it, you can run with it. All you want is that at the end of the day, if you can find your way to meet these judges, they can defend you no matter how you gained it. So we are just not building a country. We are not building a country going by all these things that is happening. But I'm happy that these revelations are coming up. I don't know if you've seen what Mr. Peter Obi said. He said, even if they did not give him back his mandate, he has helped in, awakening the consciousness of the citizens, especially in this electoral aspect. People have come to know so many things, and every day more things are being revealed. Because if not for this election, we wouldn't have known what we know today. And as you can see now, more revelations are still coming as to what is happening or what went wrong during the 2023 presidential election. Yes, Inec chairman, you can see his son, there is this allegation that money was transferred to his son's account, because when they are doing all these things, they won't accept transfer directly into their own accounts so that it won't be easily traced. But they will like send it here, send it there, so that they will then find their way to like get the money. And you can imagine this other man that Dr. Ted talked about, the former governor of Kebbi State. This man has this kind of records, and he still came to Nigeria, contested election, won. You can imagine. And Mr. Amechi was just saying that Nigerians can just vote anybody. Anything they tell you, you just accept. Anybody that contested, any people are just behaving sheepishly. But I'm so happy that some Nigerians are exempting themselves from that group, because things are changing. So we really need to start building a country. We really need to start building a country. Let's leave sentiment. Let's leave all these sentiments by the side and call a spade a spade. I think it is just high time for us to like face the reality on ground, so that a new Nigeria will be better. So, Doc, I bring you back to continue with your analysis. I
Thank
just
you.
hope that Nigeria gets it better.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. As I said day before yesterday and yesterday, the judiciary is the oldest arm of government in Nigeria. Our democracy is just 24 years. This particular dispensation, the first one was truncated from 1960, 1966. It was truncated. Another one, 1979 to 1983, it got truncated. The judiciary has always been there. It has always been there. And they are the thinking part. Now we're going to listen to former president of the Nigerian Bar Association. You're going to hear his own view as he analyzed Datidjo's valedictory speech. He will bring in his personal experience and encounter with the Supreme Court, especially why the judiciary remain corrupt today, to prove that anybody who becomes Chief Justice of the Federation likes it dirty, because if it is dirty, it pays them more. It's deliberate. When we say let our judiciary be reformed and let it become independent, it is not the executive that is making it to be dirty as it is today. They like it dirty because it pays them more. If we have that video, just from the beginning, please.
Yes, Doc. Before I bring up that video, Doc, there was this interview that Channels Television did. The interviewer was asking Mr. Chidi Odinkalu about what is happening in the judiciary. So he made mention of 3 instances. He made reference to this this revelation that was made by this judge that just retired. He also talked about the senator who said his wife helps their members, I mean the APC members, in their cases. And then he made reference to the video where one of the APC governors, the former governor of Imo State, was telling Mr. Lawal, who was then the president, the Senate president, that please, you have to teach us how you were able to meander your way back to the Senate, because I was with you on the field vying for the for the position of the president. But how you came back to the Senate seat is what I don't know. You got to teach me that. So he made reference to these 3 points and was like asking him what is happening in the judiciary, just for you to like get a little tip of how dirty the judiciary. When they say the judiciary stinks, it really stinks.
We have the video, please. Good.
Call for reform of the judiciary and its allegations of corruption within the judiciary. Do you think the moment of his valedictory speech was the appropriate occasion to attack the CJN, attack the same institution that he had served for about 47 years?
Right. I will just start by correcting you, Ruben. That teacher is a very good friend of mine. He really wasn't attacking the current CJN. He was referring more to institutional lapses that has occurred over the last, God knows how long now. This is the current, this current CJN is number 18. CJN of Nigeria was Foster Sutton in 1955. And I can say that from 55 to about, say, early 70s, the judiciary was fairly well, if badly run. Problem with judges is that they have no clue as to judicial administration versus administration of justice. There are two things: judicial administration. So during the military years, there was this consensus, even something called the Advisory Judicial Council. The predecessor to the NJC was created, and that enabled the bar and the bench to keep away the military from interference. And when we had the Constitution, it became the NJC. I think it was that the judges didn't understand the need to strengthen and institutionalize the NJC. I was on the NJC for 6 years, and it was an absolute disaster. Apart from the executive head, there's nobody in the NJC who is senior enough to understand judicial policy. And the first CJ, in my view, that understood judicial policy was the late Justice Tahiru Mustafa, at which point the rot pointed out by Mr. Justice festered. In fact, Justice Owaifu had referred to it, long-standing problem. And I'm sure that finally, because every of the retiring justices of the Supreme Court, they have the occasion to say a final farewell in what is called the valedictory. But I think Mr. Justice Datijo Mohammed was the one who has put it absolutely squarely, and I support what he has said. For instance, the welfare. Look what he said about judges, justices receiving less remuneration than the chief registrar. That tells you that something is obviously very wrong. I know that Justice Nick B, the life, the lady judge who left, had no home to go to. So something is wrong when the judiciary, through the NJC, is receiving about 160 billion naira, and we can't see it. So I think what lesson should be drawn from what Tajo has said is to implement a report that was due perhaps the most reformist CJN in Nigeria. That is the late Justice Dahiru Mustafa. It's a very good report, which, if implemented, would take care of all this. The CJN, let me re-emphasize that Mr. Justice Datijo Mohammed was not referring to the current CJN. He used the he used the CJN's office and not the personal status of Mr. Justice Ariwola to describe the rot. The Supreme Court is at this time toxic, and it ought to change. And the only way to change is to begin to implement the report. One of the problems, the only thing I'll criticize the CJN for is when he said...
Okay, before we continue, he said that judges really, when they retire, they go home poor. Okay? And then he said he doesn't understand why an arm of government that have 165 billion naira is suffering. And Dr. Justice Datijo himself said it. How can the judiciary say that we are financially emasculated when we have access to this? And then Justice Datijo said, we should question who is in charge of disbursing that money. Which means the money is available, but in our own Nigerian parlance, but one person decided to corroborate the money, to collect it, sit on it, and tell others to starve. That's what it means. Just like what governors do in states. They buy private jets. River State has a private jet, but state workers are not paid salary. I'm talking with respect to when Wike was governor. I've not seen this new one flying. I am told that this new one, that Wike is still in charge of the private jet that is owned by the government, though. Leave that matter. We don't need to talk about that tonight. But what I'm trying to say is the lofty lifestyle. Okay, look at Bagudu, that was governor of Kebbi State for 8 years. Look at the poverty level of Kebbi State indigents. The same thing the governors are doing in the states. That is what Chief Justice of the Federations are doing in the judiciary, including this one. Because this one has been there for almost a year now. What reform has he brought? No reform yet. You know why? Because if he reforms, he will be the loser. The way it is, he enjoys it. He is the Alpha and the Omega. According to Justice Datijo, it is the absolute power. Absolute, his pen determines who is paid and who is not paid, and how much is paid, and whose salary will be withdrawn, and who will be promoted, and who will be punished. Are you getting it now? So, yes, the Constitution gave them that power, but they are abusing it. Those powers were given to them to be well utilized. It's like what people complain about when people abuse the opportunities given to them. So there is 165 billion naira, and justices are retiring without having a home. Let's continue with the video, please, with the clip. Let's continue. This country is just, it's just a challenging thing, you know. Now, if you also listen to what he said from 1955 to early 70, there were semblance of justice, which means from late 70s, the corruption started rearing its ugly head. And this is where it's become endemic. According to him, he said, according to Lisa Bogaba, what was the word he used again? He said it's toxic. Yes, toxic. Toxic. That is his own word. I'm quoting him. And how can justice emanate from such a toxic chamber? How can justice emanate? Go ahead. Let's continue with that video, please. I pray that video plays. Because the kind of deep analysis Olisa Bakoba brought in here, based on personal experience. In fact, he said that there was some proposal he made to former Chief Justice of the Federation, Justice Mukhtar, the only female that had been in that office, that she did not even bother to look at his suggestions. She just abandoned it. Because to respond to it is to make her lose.
We're down to 10. But it's for him to appoint or recommend. The CJN is, as you know, the chair of the Police Commission. So he's the one who recommends judges. And then he's also chair of the National Judiciary Commission. So he receives the report he has prepared and implements it. So I don't know what's holding him. There is nothing holding the NJC from filling the gap and making the judges 21. Every day they keep bickering about workload, but they will not do what they're supposed to do. They now have the budget. So I think the way out of all this, in my personal view, is to just dust up this report that Justice Dahir Mustafa prepared 13 years ago, implement it, and let's see what will happen. Because confidence is needed. The judiciary is suffering from a very low level of democracy. And that affected the recent appeal, the election petition appeal. But as Justice Oputa said...
Can I come in? A former Chief Justice of the Federation, Justice Mustafa, the one that is dead now, there was a report he gathered, including this man, for them to give him, how can we make the judiciary a good place? The whole report was written before the man retired. 13 years. Chief Justices keep coming. They will come, they will look at it, they will say, I beg, who won't do this thing? Because if they do it, it will not benefit them personally. The measures there will not benefit them personally. The measures there will strip them of that absolute power they have. Power of the bank account, power of who becomes a judge, power of who gets promoted, power of how they make their children and what have you. That is why that report for 30, just like Justice Uwaes, Justice Uwaes' report on how to reform Inec, which Jonathan started. Jonathan started it. Buhari came and paused it. He only lifted ban on it because he was going by allowing Irev. And the sharp guys that he was working with collapsed Irev. And the Supreme Court told us, I buy APC's view that Irev is useless. Even though the Irev, the upload, the beavers, and everything is in the regulation. And the regulation and the Electoral Act says that INEC would determine the means the election will be conducted and put it in their regulation. And this same Supreme Court, under this same Chief Justice of the Federation, gave a judgment in May using the Electoral Act 2022 and the Regulation 2023. Fast forward to October, they trashed it. And we are blaming politicians. Okay, let's just put it straightforward. If you're a politician and you have the ability to grab it, you have the opportunity to snatch it and run with it. And when they are chasing you and you're running into court and people are saying, oh, we are going to go to court. And you know that the court is actually your strong room where you go and keep what you have stolen and it will be secured for you. Will you not do it with open hand and boldness? Can't we see that it is the judiciary under the headship of the Chief Justice of the Federation that is encouraging corruption in Nigeria, because part of his office is to administer discipline to erring judges. If you appeal, if you make a report, if you report a judge to the NJC, it is him that will appoint the panel that will listen to the case. So even though the office is what Datijo is referring to, but the current occupier of the office cannot be exonerated. It is him who determines who will become a judge. And the last batch of judges they promoted, they brought into the High Court, he picked his own blood son. He picked his own blood son as the Oyo State representative in the bench. So there is no other brain in the whole of Oyo State except his son. Let's continue.
From there.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Agbakoba. And since you have talked about this report from 2011, I just brought it. I think it's good for us to resurrect it at this point and discuss some of the outcomes or perhaps recommendations with you yourself, the committees on justice, integrity, dignity, and appointment and tenure of judges. So it'd be great to hear some of the recommendations from this committee report. And then just to take on one of the points you might at least recommend judges for appointment, especially to the Supreme Court, yet hasn't exercised his powers. Are there specific reasons? You've already talked about, you've eliminated the challenge of a budget, since a budget has been provided for that. So what could potentially be a reason I recommend judges to court, seeing that they complain? Even Justice Amina Oge had talked about that during her valedictory speech about the load, the workload of Supreme Court justices because of the numbers sitting currently. But beyond that, I'd like you to also speak on the report of 2011.
The recommendation, I don't know whether I can recall all of it, except to say, broadly speaking, we took time we're 29 people, mostly all the past presidents, some very senior Supreme Court judges, and past presidents of the Court of Appeal. And we took time to deliberate and came out with extensive, very extensive. So all the issues that are now toxic in the NJC and in the Supreme Court were carefully considered, even how to appoint the CJN. And the most crucial discussion was raised by my good friend Rotimi Akeredolu, who succeeded me as NBA president. He said, look, unless we tinker with the composition of the NJC, we would make no progress. Because the NJC, as you know, is the highest judicial making organ of the judiciary. But the problem is that the CJM appoints virtually everybody, and no one can talk. I remember in one of the meetings, when I had a very strong point to make, I was just dismissed. And I thought I had a good point, but there was no one to support me, because everybody was afraid of the CJN, to whom they owe their appointment. So the democratization of the institutions of the judiciary. CJN is the chair of the NJI, that's the National Judicial Institute. He is the chair of the the NILES. He is chair of the Legal Practitioners Privileges Committee. He's chair of everything. So there's a dictatorship. In fact, of the three arms of government, the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary, most undemocratic is actually the judiciary.
Hold on.
So that's where the problem is. So what I would recommend to the current NJC.
Did you hear him? That this is dictatorship. And the man who just retired had been there in the system for 47 years. I don't know how many years this current Chief Justice has been there, but he knows all these things. And he's been a CGN for more than 1 year now. He has not made no change at all, which means it pays them more to have the system as toxic and as corrupt as it is. Let's tell ourselves the truth. In fact, I think the new campaign Nigeria need to begin is forget APC, forget what is happening from Aso Rock, Forget the National Assembly and all those people. Let them continue. Real eyes and real voice need to wake up now against the judiciary so that they can reinvent themselves. Because if they become who they should be, Nigeria, it will just be like a clogged gutter. If you clear that clog, the water of free and fair democracy will start flowing in Nigeria. Now look at it. The NJC, he appoints everybody who will be there, and nobody can challenge him. Now, let me also tell you something. Like he said, the judge says, we only have 10 judges. Nigerian constitution provides for 21 Supreme Court judges. And it is him, the Chief Justice of the Federation, that will recommend. He is the person who will appoint and bring it to the NJC. NJC members are people he appointed. And they will now forward the name to the president, and the president will forward it to the National Assembly. And for more than a year, you did not know that the Supreme Court is depleting. Under him now, how many people? The former chief judge that left, that he took over from, is one. Sentus Nweze that just died, that they buried, two. The other lady, I've forgotten her name, that just left last week, plus this, no, last month, plus this man that just left last week. 4 people under 1 year. And you sat down, you have not appointed a new person. You know the reason? Let me explain to you. I used to have a mentor who knows the in and out of the running of the government in Nigeria. He told me that no budget crosses over in Nigeria in government, meaning if the government budget, if any government department or parastatal or arm budgeted, say, 100 billion, there is nothing like they had surplus. There is nothing like they spent 90 billion. So they, normally now, like overseas, if you don't exhaust your budget, you return the remaining and then submit. Is it not true? So he said, no, that if you go to Abuja from 27th December, when people are on holiday, you see how they are generating one invoice after invoice. They will give contract on 27th of December. They will pay for the contract on 29th, 30th, so that by 1st of January, the whole money is finished. Now, let me use that theory to tell you something. This 165 billion that has been made available for the judiciary, it is an amount of money that will accommodate every judges, assuming that there are 21 Supreme Court judges. Now that there are only 10, by January next year, even though extra 35 was released to them this middle of year, the whole money go finish. So now look at it. If 10 new judges were to be appointed, they will get car. Is it not true? They will get houses, official houses. Is it not true? They will get salaries and allowances. And all of them will come from this 165 billion. But if those judges are not appointed and money cannot be returned, maybe they will credit your account with the ex surplus. You understand what I mean now? These things are just, oh my goodness. Just listen to this man. Let's go. Let's listen to him and go on. Oh, goodness me. Can we see hear him? Is it possible? Go ahead.
Absolutely remove the powers of the CJN to be everywhere. Often criticize the judiciary. But you know, the judiciary comprises of judges across Nigeria. I've once had the misfortune of appearing before a judge under a tree. And I know many cases where this work so hard that when there's no NEPA, they use their phone lights to continue. So let's not vie the judiciary generally. The problem is at the NJC. In the NJC, the first day I walked in, I thought I was walking into a 5-star hotel. The difference between what goes on in the NJC buildings and a typical courtroom is outstanding, horrible. So we need to flatten this. The difference between a judge of the High Court and the CJN is like God in heaven and somebody on earth. We need to really, really take the opportunity of the lesson, I think, that Tijo Muhammad's valedictory, which has been the most candid, has given us with the judiciary. And if we want to reverse judicial failure, then the NJC, the current NJC, must implement it.
So can we say that makes sense with all of the other things, and that Tijo quoted you about the Imo case and the Ahmed Lawan case. And we also have a country where Senator Bukachua also made affirmations as regards that. So does all of this now tie to even decisions made, talking about 741,000 naira in modern day Nigeria as earnings? Then what becomes even of the court system? What country are we running?
Yeah, so let's keep two things, separate. The funding issue has improved substantially. I mean, for the last 30 years,
but it's not reflective.
At the forefront with other,
But it's not reflective.
It isn't, because
it's not reflective.
Yeah, I agree with you, because there's a mafia. I agree entirely. Is the money being distributed? I know of judges who have passed on illness. Is it reflecting? It is not. So that's the point I'm making. So on the budget, we need to have a democratic process where...
Please, how many adjectives have you picked from this night that had been used to describe the duties of the CJN, how he has been handling his duties? Because now I'm beginning to separate. You see, let me explain what I mean. You see why those who are in the Governorship Election Petition Tribunal don't care. They don't care how they give their judgment. Because somebody wrote me and said, listen, like in the case of Enugu Governorship Election Petitions Tribunal, somebody wrote me a text and said, those judges are retiring. And they collect, according to the allegation, the person said, that they collected as much as 7 billion naira from PDP and their candidates as their own retirement benefit. The question is, all these people are judges. Some of them have been denied promotion because they don't know people in high places. So they get stuck in the high court until they retire. And when they see the opportunity, bam, they smack, they grab it, they snatch it, and they run with it. Do you understand? So, Senator Bulkachawa probably told his wife, hey, my dear darling, you will not become a Chief Justice of the Federation. My fellow politicians that have money, they want to grease your hand. Please help them. Please take this opportunity as the president of this appeal court. Grab it, snatch it now, run with it. Because the whole money the government is giving to the judiciary, only one man has chosen to do what? Grab it, snatched it, and running with it. It's a very simple thing. So those in the high court, they don't care what they rule, how they judge. You can go to appeal and have it turned there, but they have collected from the highest bidder. Are you seeing how it is affecting electoral petition all over at every level? Do you understand? Now, they have used this adjective, toxic. They have used this adjective, dictatorial. They have used this adjective, and all of them bothered in the way the Chief Justice of the Federations have been executing their responsibilities. Their manner of execution have been seen. He said that if you go to NJC building, it's like a 5-star hotel. And it is a different ball game when you come to the courts. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine that? It's like our governors coming. It's like our governors coming overseas. They live in a suite. The former governor of Delta State had a permanent suite in Dubai where he was living. But look at the roads in Delta State where he came from. Can you compare it? So they are saying these judges are using their phone to write judgments. And then you give that judge and say, your son, you say your son is in Esute or Uniport, don't worry. I'll send him to Leeds University in UK. I will send him to one university in the US. The man will say, what do you say? That I should say you're not guilty. Don't worry. In fact, before I write it, you're not guilty. Whereas the money that should have made that judge be comfortable have been given by the government, but one person decided to corroborate it. So is the judiciary corrupt or the head of the judiciary corrupt? That's a definition for the next time. We have just a few minutes, even though this video is long, but let's just see what we can do in the next four minutes or thereabouts. Go on. Can we see play? Okay, try please.
By the funding is spread and not just retained. Do you know, for instance, that when a Supreme Court judge retires, he leaves his house to nowhere? The only person who gets housing in the Supreme Court is actually the CJN. He has a choice of 2 houses. One in Abuja and probably one in his home state. And sometimes this runs into billions. And I was on the NJC questioning, why would this be? What about the other judges? So that's part of why the situation in the Supreme Court has become so toxic. And it is what Mr. Justice Datijo Mohammed was referring to. The only judge, the first, because the CJN is seen as the Baba of the judicial process. But the first judge who now got a real kick to say no, constitutionally, I, Mr. Justice Salami, the head of the electoral courts. But Kassina Alu said, no, I'm the Baba of the courts. And that caused the quarrel. So you see, it goes back to this issue of we need democracy in the judicial institutions. The institutions that Mr. Justice Datijo Mohammed referred to, that the CJN, to this one please, that the CJN controls, it's a retirement, it's a job for the boys. The guys who get there to do the work are already tired. Go to the NJI, tired. While young guys vibrant to shake up the system. The rules of court, if for instance Justice Amber of the colonial system of 1874 were to come to Nigeria, he will recognize the system. There's no change. And we discussed that in one of the committees where I was deputy chair, the Committee on Speed of Justice. The rules of court are so slow. And it takes about 20 years to resolve cases. So what type of confidence would you have in that process? The only time you see speed is when you are referring to political cases. So the politicians, knowing that they need speed, have designed a special rule for themselves so that their cases go fast. What about the ordinary person? So these are all the challenges that
that's why I also want to refer
really
you
needs to sit down.
I want to refer you to
Yes.
the way Justice Datijo quoted you when he talked about the Ahmed Lawan case and the Imo case. I want you to talk through that, because that's also a serious one for our country. If we truly want to build a country or we want to build a joke.
Rufai, you want to put me in trouble.
I would like to put you in trouble.
I gave an interview that it was a bad decision, period. It was a bad decision.
And that's on the Supreme Court. That's on the Supreme Court.
I agree with you, Rufai. It was a bad decision. That's the much I will say. It was a bad decision, and we know that even Mr. Justice Datijo said it in his valedictory. Just kind of explain some of the decisions. They're irrational. And what sense do we make of what the Supreme Court is saying?
And that's where public opinion comes in, sir.
In the time of our...
That's where public opinion becomes
Absolutely,
important
I agree with you.
in society.
Absolutely. Public opinion of the judiciary is at its lowest ebb. And I think that this is something that the judiciary ought to take very serious. They ought to take the points made by Mr. Justice Datijo Mohammed extremely serious. It's, every other day or every other year, some retiring Supreme Court justice would make a valedictory. And you recall that Justice Datijo Mohammed was even saying, should I even bother? But he was persuaded by his family, no, history will not remember you kindly if you do not speak. That text which he spoke, and he spoke very frankly. So again, I return to the point, because everything he said, I agree with. It is simply for the judiciary to say what Justice Datijo Mohammed has said is a very important point, and we need to take it very serious. Otherwise, the judiciary is going down.
There seems to be a general consensus that we need judicial reform and that we also need constitutional amendment. However, I thought that last year, around June or so, yes, last year, the FJSC had a short list of go to the Supreme Court, majorly.
I don't really think this section will be that relevant. I had wanted to comment on the last point that Rufai raised. We've always talked about this thing here. And even when we started, I didn't even know that they involved this in this interview. But when we started, I somehow made reference to it because there's another interview on Channels Television about this. History will always bring up these things. This is why these are judges. They really need to be careful. In case you have a relative or any of your parents, is a judge, it's good for them to try their best. I know the situation in Nigeria is pulling their legs, but I think they should try to build that integrity. They should try to do that. Honestly, Doc, let me know what you have to say, because all these things, I know that of Imo State is another strong thing that is not going to die down anytime soon. Supreme Court said APC doesn't have a candidate. Supreme Court now gave APC victory after just a little while. They now gave them victory that they won in the election. You can imagine such a contradiction.
You know why? I just feel bad that we don't have time and we really need to close, because when I think it was at this point that Abati was asking him, I wanted to say, what is Abati going to say? But he veered into somewhere when he asked that Datijo was also mentioning the issue of patronage in the appointment. And please, let's just listen to the question of Abati, please. I think it's about 1 minute, please. Permit me, so I can tie up with that, because he said it connected to the same thing. I pray that it is this point.
Justices of the Court of Appeal. Whatever happened to that process?
It's not this place.
Because
it's not this place. When I'm talking,
it's part of the talk. Yes, it's part of the toxic mafia. We've been pushing to have members of the bar get onto the Supreme Court. Actually, I and Wole Oladekbako were the first to actually offer ourselves in the time of...
but he just used another adjective, mafia, toxic, mafia,
toxic mafia.
Yes, he has used dictatorial, dictatorship, toxic, mafia. Okay, fine. There was another question Ruben Abati asked him when he said, is it not too much what that he said, that he just said, that the appointment is now patronage, political connection, relationship, And you know how but he talks. He says, including mistresses. What do you have to say? The man said, I know them. He says, it is more than what that he just said. But that he will not talk so that they will not sue him for libel. Which means Chidi Odinkalu was the first person that said it. That they have picked that in this particular judges, that this Supreme Court judge, anointed, so to say, that there were people who did not pass the exam. And that in the previous batch, there were people who did not write the exam at all. And they were picked above those who passed, even though they did not write. And this one, there are those who failed, and they were picked above those who passed.
No wonder the social media people were like saying that these people that ruled in this Supreme Court final judgment, they should provide their certificate. So you can see some elements of truth. People that will just gain this position anyhow. When they get there, they are never conscious of the kind of judgment they dispense.
So, Nigerians, if you ask me to recommend, I would say, I think we need to start afresh with the campaign of hashtag all eyes on judiciary now, all voices on judiciary now. And specifically, let's begin to start to call out the Chief Justice of the Federation, because the changes that can happen in our judiciary, which is under his control, that he can execute under his office without the executive bothering him or the legislature, are 1,001. I will also encourage us to trace this particular clip and listen to it, because this man bared his heart here. It's about 50 minutes, and there's no way we could finish all of them. Now, before we drop off, just before we came online, I got a news. I have the judgment here from the DC in the case of Aaron Greenspan, the FBI files and co. The court still did not permit the release of the document today. The court wanted to hear the whole case in full before giving final verdict. Why I'm saying it is so that when you begin to hear tomorrow from TVC and from what's the name of all those media houses that is owned by APC people, that just know that it is a temporary injunction that the court placed to make sure that all the case is exhausted, and which also mean that the information we expected to start popping it from today is likely not going to come. That is it. So we end on this way. Enjoy yourself. We'll see you again tomorrow, and hopefully bring you something that is educative and something that will encourage you to fight further for Nigeria. Thank you all, and good night.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, our viewers. Thank you for staying with us till the end of today's show. Please like this video so that YouTube will recommend it for more people to watch, and also subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to turn on the bell icon so that you get all our notifications. And with this, we've come to the end of today's live show. Good night and God bless you. Bye.